I was born into a very fundamentalist religious community, a cult. I was taught that my goal in life was to become a wife and a mother, and it was going to be a man that my family chose for me. Men in that community make a blessing every morning, thanking God for not making them a non-Jew, or a woman. I was fully on board, fully believed that my future as a wife and a mother was just lucky me. Couldn't wait. In the very insular religious community where I grew up, which was the Ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, a man is allowed to divorce his wife, but a woman is not allowed to divorce her husband. A woman doesn't even have the right to end her own marriage. I'm not going to give you a religious divorce, a get, unless you give me $1 million, give me the marital home, give me custody of all the kids, etc. Two families decide that their kids are going to get married, and it usually is facilitated by a matchmaker. It's usually just someone who wants to make a little extra money on the side. And those two families, it's never two individuals, and matches them together, and if there's an engagement, they make some money. It never occurred to me that this whole system of marrying people off without their consent to a stranger that their family chose for them was all I saw. Everyone I knew, from my parents to my older siblings getting married off, to my neighbors and friends and cousins. It's a very insular community, so all I knew was within that community. There was no television, radio, newspapers. There was almost no real contact with anybody from outside this cult. So the process usually starts when you're in high school, but I was not a catch. My parents were divorced. That was so rare in that community back then. That was a major mark against me, and my family was very poor. At 18, my first match came along, and on one of these limited so-called dates, this guy told me that he sometimes smoked. It seemed like a sin that God was going to punish him for, and if I was around, I was going to get punished too somehow. I told my mother, I said, I don't think I can say yes to this man. He smokes. So we rejected that match. The second match that came along, the fact that twice when we were out on our so-called dates, he got into physical fights with other people, punching, rolling around on the street, that did not occur to me as a problem, that this is somebody with violent tendencies to whom I was not at all physically attracted, but I was told that's not important. We had nothing in common. The signs were there right away. While I was engaged, I was subjected to a exam. I had to go to a gynecologist and undergo a physical examination to confirm that my was intact and I was a so-called. I became this man's wife when I knew him for a total of about 3 months. One of the most painful memories of my wedding is how stupidly happy I was. I thought, I'm not going to end up one of those single women. Look how wonderful this is, that my mother, despite all my flaws, look at me, they still found me a match. Woo, yay. I was so stupidly happy. I always say I walked down the aisle to my execution wearing the world's ugliest gown and a big smile on my face. I was just relieved that all my friends were getting married, and I had thought I'm going to be the only one who's not married because I'm the only one whose parents are divorced. I had no understanding of what was headed my way. That exam was one of the most traumatic memories of my life. You know, it's something I'll never forget. And that was in 1994, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. There's the mikvah experience, and the mikvah is the ritual bath. The only way to describe that is, again, a assault, where to have somebody examine every inch of your body and then watch you dunk in a bath of rainwater, where I got an infection every time because it's the same bath that every other woman dunked in. And I was required to go before my wedding night, and then on a monthly basis after you have your, where you're just being told all day how filthy and disgusting you are. And when I came home for the mikvah every month, back to this husband who had spent the whole day describing to me in graphic detail how he was going to me, had to just get in the bed and spread my legs, and I had to have unprotected. He woke up late one morning and he was furious, started screaming and cursing and jumping up and down. His anger was just so physical, and it was so out of proportion to what had happened. He woke up late, and then he punched his fists through the wall hard enough that he left a big hole in the wall, and then ran out to whatever he was late for. And I just stood there shaking and crying and thinking, what is going on? We didn't have dishes, furniture, walls in the house that weren't smashed. He would just smash everything. And while he was doing it, he would describe to me in very graphic detail how he was going to me and how he was going to watch me take my last breath. And then once we had kids, he would also describe to them how he was going to kill me, and then he would tell me he was going to kill them as well. It became this whole fantasy that he would play out constantly, and it was very believable because he was doing this while he was expressing his rage in a very physical way. A friend must have sensed what was happening, because one day she slipped me the number of a therapist that she was seeing. She said, this is a therapist who's not in the community, which is not allowed. That's a major sin. I went only a couple of times, but this therapist really explained to me for the first time what domestic violence is. She also explained to me that I had rights, and it was a real eye-opening experience for me. And after a particularly incident at home, I believe I was the first woman in the Orthodox Jewish community in Lakewood, New Jersey, to go to the police and ask for a protective order against my then husband. And that was a real turning point, not for the reasons that you would think. The backlash from my friends and family and neighbors and my own community was so extreme. An Orthodox Jewish male attorney showed up at my house, drove with me to family court, and made me stand in front of the judge and tell the judge that I wanted to drop the restraining. It was that day when I got home, I realized I need to get out on my own. The police are not going to help me. My family, my community are not going to help me. If I'm going to get out of this alive and get my kids out of this alive, I need to do this myself. And that was when I finally put a 5-year plan in place. I applied to college, went online, did a search, found a school called Rutgers University. It's the State University of New Jersey. I thought, well, that sounds like a good school. Applied, and then I also started saving up cash in the only place in the house that my husband didn't go through my personal belongings on a regular basis. My then husband was becoming more and more violent because he recognized that he was about to lose control over me. And he would go to the synagogue in the morning, come home, and just spend the day just terrifying me and my daughters, who at the time were 7 and 11. The three of us would lock ourselves in my older daughter's bedroom. She had a lock on her door, and we would sit on the floor, the three of us, with me in the middle, and my arms around both of my daughters, while he just banged on the door and raged and screamed that he's going to kill all of us. And it got to this point where I was about to graduate, and we're sitting on the floor on Saturday afternoon, and it suddenly occurred to me, why am I doing this? Why am I cowering here in fear? I'm about to get my college degree. I'll be able to finally become financially dependent, because during my marriage, under Orthodox Jewish law, I was forced to be financially dependent on my husband. I'm going to get my kids out of here. I don't need to put up with this. So I stood up and I opened the door and I told him, shut up. So he continued screaming and cursing. So I said, kids, let's go. We're getting in the car. And he drove down. We had a long driveway. The looks on the neighbors' faces when we drove down that driveway. It's something no one had ever done in the history of the Orthodox Jewish community in Lakewood, New Jersey, driving on the Sabbath. And then he came home about a week later and just, couldn't get in because I had changed the locks, and he was banging, ringing the bell. I was like, hi, honey, I'm home. And I said, no. My exact words to him were, I have tasted life without you, and it is sweet. You're not coming back. He continued to stalk me. I finally had to get an actual protective order against him, because he continued to stalk me and threaten me even after we were divorced. And one of my acts of rebellion, in addition to going to college, which, believe me, freaked out my family, they were not pleased with that. The other thing that I did was I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not wearing a head covering. In that community, that's like walking outside. The day that I went and got a haircut and came home without my wig, with all 4 windows of my car down while I was driving down the Garden State Parkway, my family shunned me, just cut off all contact with me. And one of my sisters let me know that my family was planning to sit Shiva for me, or go through the Jewish mourning ritual for me. Until today, I don't know if they actually did that, because I've had almost no contact with them since then. But look at me. I like to say, wouldn't woman wear this shade of lipstick? Come on. All my friends cut off contact with me. I was left with no one. The only 2 people in the world who would talk to me were my 7 and 11-year-old daughters, who needed me to fend for them, because they had lost everything and everyone as well. It took a long time until I was able to become financially independent and emotionally independent. And I got to a point in 2011 that I was able to buy my own house. I'm in it right now, which is a little tiny Cape Cod, which my daughters and I immediately named the Palais de Triomphe. I said, I want to help other people who are stuck in this situation. And when I was trying to escape, I had no one to turn to. There was no one who understood what I was going through. There was no nonprofit organization or government agency you can turn to and say, I'm being forced to marry. And that's when Unchained at Last was born, which it was at the time and remains the only organization in the world that is dedicated to ending forced and child marriage in the United States through both direct services and systems change. You can go to unchainedatLast.org, and we provide crucial, comprehensive, wraparound, often life-saving services. Everything from helping people escape. We'll help you figure out if you're being held against your will. Many people, when they reach out to us, are being held against their will while a marriage is being planned for them or after they've already been married. So help you escape. And that's including if you were taken overseas, because what we have found is a lot of parents will take their child overseas to force them into a marriage in another country where you can't call 911 and get help. And then we provide all kinds of legal and social and financial services to help people not only get out of a bad situation, but to rebuild their lives. In many cases, after their own family has shunned them, like my family did, and we become their new family. We never charge for any of our services. By the way, they're always for free. And in many cases, we become the new family. We have to help survivors legally change their name under seal, because that's the only way they can stay safe from a family that just continues relentlessly to search for them, determined to punish them for daring to escape. For anyone who is in or facing a forced marriage, you deserve help and you can get help. Please reach out to us at Unchained at Last and know that you deserve help regardless of what the people around you are telling you. You deserve and can get help. In 2015, we expanded our mission to take on systems change as well, because the only way to help a girl under 18 escape a forced marriage is to change the laws to make the marriage age 18, no exceptions. And our groundbreaking research showed that 300,000 minors were married in the US just between 2000 and 2018, as young as 10 years old. But we have now started this national movement, and to date, we have helped to ban child marriage, passing simple common sense legislation to make the marriage age 18 no exceptions so far in 10 U.S. states, 2 territories. And we like to say we have only 40 states, 3 territories, 1 district, and the federal government left to go to end child marriage.